Here's the bottom line. What can I control? Can I control how others feel? The argument can be made, can I influence how I make others feel? Absolutely. I'm not naive to think otherwise. Is it my responsibility how others respond, react, or feel towards me, about me? Can I control how other people feel? No, I can't control how other people feel. What I can control is my actions, my attitude, my words, ultimately my behavior, which falls under actions there. That's what I can control. I can't control how other people feel. It's both powerful and powerless to know that I make other people feel a certain way. Entrepreneurs, leaders, and influencers, are you taking responsibility for others' feelings and emotions when you shouldn't be? That's the topic I'm going to cover today. I've got lots of notes I'm going to go through. So here we go. Are you taking responsibility for others' feelings as an entrepreneur, as a leader, as an influencer in areas when you shouldn't be? So I've got a couple stories. I'm a collaborative leader. I like to collaborate. I like to get input from those around me. I like to brainstorm with other people and genuinely consider and value those people that are in my circles and use their input as part of my decision-making process. I have had over the years, so I'm a collaborative leader. I've had over the years a number of commander leaders, so leaders that their leadership style is through command, so it's authoritative. So, they don't take input, or if they do, that's really a placation because they never actually consider the input. They'll hear it, but then ultimately they always make their own decisions. And I'm not saying one is wrong and one is right. I'm just here's the dynamic that has happened to me. As a collaborative leader, I have had multiple commander style leaders not like how I lead. No, but you need to be more, you shouldn't consider others opinions or input. You just need to make the decision yourself and just tell everyone what they need to do. And it's funny because a couple times when I did that, when I used the commander style leadership approach, those commanders, those other folks that were commander style leaders didn't like being told what to do. So it was very funny. And it was a funny dynamic. So that's number one, the first story. And that's very real to me. I mean, that's a true story. It's happened to me multiple times. As a collaborative leader, I have received pushback multiple times from commander style leaders. Story number two. I have a family member who one of their superpowers is guilt trips. Master guilt trippers. So much so that it's inevitable that I'm going to get a guilt trip in every conversation. And so those are two very real life stories. It's like I can't do anything right. Too much of this, not enough of this. Didn't do this, did do this, right? So that's again two real stories. Is it my responsibility in those scenarios? And I can give you a lot more. Those are just two real examples. Is it my responsibility how I make others feel? Is it my responsibility? So those commander style leaders who don't like my collaborative style leadership, is it my responsibility that they don't like my leadership style? In the second scenario, is it my responsibility how I make that particular family member feel? Because and it's every time for years, is it my responsibility how I make them feel? Here's the bottom line: what can I control? Can I control how others feel? Now, the argument can be made: can I influence how I make others feel? Absolutely. I'm not naive to think otherwise. Is it my responsibility how others respond, react, or feel towards me, about me? Can I control how other people feel? No, I can't control how other people feel. What I can control is my actions, my attitude, my words, ultimately my behavior, which falls under actions there. That's what I can control. I can't control how other people feel. It's both powerful and powerless to know that I make other people feel a certain way. It's powerful on one hand. Man, I have the ability to control how other people feel on one hand. The other hand, it's powerless. It feels very powerless because I I um I can't control ultimately how other people feel, except when they communicate to me, well, when you do this, no, but makes me feel a certain way. So it's a weird dynamic there that happens. So what I need to do, the other dynamic is it's violating my boundaries and their boundaries when with this dynamic that I make other people feel a certain way. So it's violating my personal property line, if you will, and their personal property line. For me to think that I control other people's feelings and emotions, and for for me to take responsibility for their feelings and emotions. So I need to stop taking responsibility for their feelings and emotions, and regardless of how they respond to me, regardless if they say, well, no, well, you made me feel a certain way, or you make me feel a certain way, or you should do this, or you shouldn't do this. I need to stop taking responsibility for how they feel. And I need to start taking responsibility for my feelings and emotions and my behaviors, words, and actions. And, especially again, as a recovering people pleaser addict, I would let others' emotions and feelings and reactions completely control me. I mean, consume me, literally consume me. So, how effective can I be as a leader, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, when I am consumed with how I make other people feel or behave or respond or react to me? That's an incredibly ineffective approach to business, to leadership, to influence. Now, as I'm getting healthier emotionally, I'm feeling stronger and more free to make decisions considering others, but not being controlled by others. Considering others, but not being controlled by others. I feel like we should consider others. I think it's the right thing to do. It's part of emotional intelligence, right? There's one aspect of emotional intelligence, which is being self-aware and self-management, being self-aware. The other side of emotional intelligence is being others aware, social management. Excuse me. So being that others aware. So it's important to consider others, but not be controlled by others. And here's the thing: even when there is pushback, even because here's the deal, as you get healthier emotionally, as you begin to start figuring out what your personal property line is in relationship to other people, as you do that, you will get pushback. I have gotten pushback as I have, with those folks that, hey, Noble, you need to be more of a command style leader. I've told them, look, I appreciate that you want me to lead this particular way. That's not me. It's not who I am. If I led that way, I would not be authentic, which is another massive leadership failure and ineffective and yeah, failure and it's just very ineffective to be inauthentic. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to violate my own how I lead, who I am, who God's called me to be. So I've just let them know. And with the other dynamic, with the second scenario, I'm just not letting those people control, even though they've given me, gotten pushback as I've made decisions that they were not, they did not want me to make. And typically I would, oh, okay, all right. I would always acquiesce, or I would cave. I'm not caving anymore. I'm not cowering to their guilt trips, to their pushback. And it's allowing me, so this whole dynamic is allowing me to really begin to discover who I am and who God has called me to be, not who my friends have called me to be, not who Uncle, you know, John wants me to be, or Aunt Francine wants me to be, or not who, my college classmates want me to be, or my homeschool friends want me to be, or my Christian friends want me to be. No, who does God want me to be? Who am I? And as I'm getting healthier emotionally and not taking any more responsibility for others' feelings and emotions and taking responsibility for my own feelings and emotions, I'm finally slowly starting to discover who I am as a leader, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as an influencer, and who God wants me to be, not who others want me to be. And it is this another kind of reiteration here is you are not responsible for how other people feel. I'm not responsible for how other people feel. You aren't either. So rather than having that false responsibility, start taking ownership of how you feel, your own emotions and behavior. So walk in freedom. Walk in freedom and don't let yourself be impacted by the nonverbals, right? You'll start to feel, as you start to walk in freedom, other people's nonverbals will start to impact you less. Their emotional outbursts will start to impact you less. And the mental control and manipulation that others try to impose on you will begin to have less impact and effect on you. Now, again, this whole concept is not a quote, I can treat people however I want to card, where um, okay, so yeah, I can only control what I can control, and I'm not responsible for how you feel about me. So let me, throat punch you in the face. I'm like, hey, well, I controlled my punch, my fist hitting your face, and if you're upset with me, right, that's your fault, right? That's on you. It's not on me. Well, obviously, that's not, that is not the end state of this principle of you taking responsibility for your own emotions and feelings and not taking responsibility for somebody else's emotions and feelings. That's not what this is not a free, I'm going to behave or treat people poorly card. Of course not. We should always be humble and teachable and growth minded and absolutely consider others, just not be controlled by others. Now, the other side of this coin, right? So this is another just completely other side of the coin here. Do you have others that make you feel a certain way? Right. So then one camp, there's, on one side of the coin, it's, how you make others feel, right? Or based on how they have communicated that to you. But are there others who make you feel a certain way? For example, a parent to a kid, man, and I used to tell my daughter this, amor, when you said this or did this, you made me happy or sad or angry or frustrated. I've said it to my wife. When you said this or did this, you made me feel a certain way. Now, what that does is, and somebody be like, well, yeah, well, I say that all the time, right, that kind of thing. But here's what I realized. When you communicate that to somebody, you are teaching them poor boundaries. You are subconsciously, well, and even directly and indirectly, communicating that they have power over your feelings and emotions. So I was communicating to my daughter as a kid who, she and I always say, I said this to her when she was 4 or 5 years old. She doesn't have a clue what's going on at 4 or 5 years old. So I'm teaching my 4 or 5-year-old that in some way she controls how daddy feels. That's crazy. Again, that's giving false power, false responsibility to a 4 or 5-year-old, to a false power, false responsibility to my wife, to a colleague, to an employee, to a team member, whatever your dynamic is. And so to an employee, from an entrepreneur to an employee. So our leadership as an entrepreneur, as a husband, as a father, as a mother, as a wife, whatever, should be steady, right? That's the ultimate goal. Our emotions should not be controlled by anyone but ourselves. We can choose our emotions and feelings. Now, I get it. Sometimes, boom, when you stub your toe, there's an immediate feeling of pain. How we respond, we have control over. There have been times where I stubbed a toe and I immediately say a colorful adjective. Well, I've also caught myself catching myself and not and allowing the censor monkey to jump in and not say that, a cuss word or punch the wall or whatever because I stubbed my toe or I dropped the glass or whatever the case may be. So that's what that's made me realize is I'm not a slave to my emotions. Now, I there have been phases of my life where I've absolutely been a slave, but that's because of my emotional immaturity, not because, well, I just have no control over my feelings and emotions. So realize now, again, when, are there things that my daughter does or the things that my wife does that I have allowed to make me feel a certain way? Absolutely. But again, what was the lesson back before? That's my responsibility. That's I allow that to happen. If my daughter or wife, whatever, said that or did that to somebody else, would they feel the exact same way that I did? No, not necessarily. So I can't just carte blanche just allow this default mechanism that, oh, well, if my daughter says this or does this, or if my wife does this or says this, or if an employee does this or says this, it always makes me feel a certain way, and therefore they are in control of my feelings and emotions. No, it's time where I have got to start taking control and ownership of my own feelings and emotions and not give that power and stop giving that power to other people in my life, again, as a recovering people pleaser addict. And so, so a couple questions to ask ourselves. Who do I bother or upset? Who do I bother or upset? Who bothers or upsets me? Who bothers or upsets me? And then with those questions to ask yourself, is that a boundary issue where I am not taking responsibility for myself and I'm taking responsibility for others' feelings and emotions? Or is it Or is it a behavior issue where, no, I am, and this is a real one. Again, another real one, being transparent. And I've got to do some more emotional work on this, but I will pester or provoke my daughter to the point where she gets upset. And it's like, no, but what am I like? As I love tickling her, right? But it, but I have. There's so many times where I've taken it too far, where I keep tickling her, and she's like, "Poppy, stop!" Okay, the first, 2 to 5 seconds, like it's fun and we're joking around, whatever. But I keep doing it like an annoying little brother to the point where it completely upsets her. And is that my goal? No. So then why don't I stop? What is right? So that would be a behavior deal. I've got to address my behavior and figure out what's the emotion behind that. Why am I doing this? Why do I more often than not push it an extra 2 to 5 seconds beyond when she wants me to stop? So now I'm violating her boundaries. What am I teaching her? Now I'm teaching her that as a boy in her life, well, that they're just going to violate her boundaries. Are you kidding me? That is the last message that I want to teach my kid. So I have got to be more aware of her boundaries and stop violating her boundaries in that area, right? So another question to ask yourself. So back to that, so number one, who do I bother or upset? And again, in this case, it's my kid. Who bothers or upsets me? And then again, is it a boundary issue, or is it a behavior issue, or is it both? And then a third question is, am I taking false responsibility for someone else's feelings and emotions? And again, that issue with my daughter, there's a perfect example. I am not taking false responsibility. However, I am violating her boundary. So that's a boundary issue, and it's a behavior issue. I'm violating a boundary issue because of my behavior. So now I need to do the emotional work to figure out, okay, what is my deal? Why have I more often than not violated this boundary? Is there some emotional need that I am, because I'm still emotionally immature in an area what is it, right? So that's some work that I've got to figure out. So the first thing is, like, ask for awareness, ask God for awareness, like, or, just, do some reflection time to become aware of these relationships, of these areas in relationships where, whether it's a boundary issue or a behavior issue, and then begin taking ownership, right? Start to pay attention. What is my property line? What is my personal property line that I am responsible for? God, help me really dial in the areas that I am responsible for, that are in my personal property line, and help me to identify those areas and in those relationships where it is not my responsibility. It's not my property line. Their feelings and emotions that's in their property line. Therefore, that's their responsibility. It is not my responsibility to mow my neighbor's yard. That's their responsibility, right? As an example. So begin taking ownership. And identify ownership, and identify what is in your property line, what is in, somebody else's property line, and then begin walking out the new behaviors that fall within your boundary line and your property line, and control, again, what you can control. That's what's in your property line is what you can control, which is, again, your actions, your attitude, and your words. And then I would encourage you to begin to document your journey, whether that's journaling, whether that's doing a voice memo on your phone, whether that's doing video journaling, vlogging kind of things, so that you can kind of track your progress and really be able to identify how you're growing. So thank you so much for joining me on this journey. So excited to grow with you as we all become more emotionally healthy and fit to be more productive as entrepreneurs, leaders, and influencers.